this is Amy from Amy's Free Motion Quilting Adventures, and I've had a request to do a video on how I fix mistakes. A lot of time when we're showing something on a YouTube video or in a class or even just in a blog post, we talk about, well, I'll have to go back and fix that. And a lot of times we never show how we fix it. So I'm going to fix this little mess up right here in this dahlia design. So first thing is I need to rip out these crooked stitches, and first I need to decide when I'm ripping these out, where am I ripping them to? And I'm just going to rip them back to here and back to here. It'd be great to just rip it out a little bit, you know, not have to redo that whole thing, but I'm going to have to requilt this line, and I want to be able to blend it into what I'm doing, so that the fix isn't any more noticeable than the original mistake. So I got my little seam ripper. I'm trying hard not to move my quilt block here because I am sitting off to the side of the camera, and so I cannot see what is on the screen except for where I know I put my block. So, and right here, this sample I actually quilted with some light thread on the bobbin, so I can see that. I don't know that you can see it, but it's a loop that's pulled up since I started ripping the stitches. Since I don't want to flip this over to clip my bobbin thread, I'm going to just rip that loop out, so that way my bobbin thread is now cut in half, because I just can't get to the back side while filming this way. I'm here all by my lonesome. The kids are at school. So hopefully I'm keeping this where you can see it. So I've ripped out to here. And now I'm just going to go ahead and put in a double knot. Not a fancy granny knot or anything. I'm just doing a simple double knot. It's kind of difficult with just two short ends of threads. There's another trick you can do if you have even shorter ends, but this is enough to do a double knot. I'll save that trick for another video. And I'm going to pop this knot down into my quilt sandwich. I've just got a little bit of thread here. And I'm going to make sure that when I snap it into my self-threading needle that I leave some slack. You see that loop of thread right here? That is so that when I pull my needle through, it doesn't yank itself right out of the eye of the needle. So I've pulled that through, and if I just give it a little tug, that knot pops right underneath the surface. I'm just going to stick my needle right there. Trim my thread ends, and I'm going to come back over here and finish this side. If my stitches are very small, and a lot of times when I'm doing a fill they are very small, I'll use my self-threading needle instead, because you can see it's got a much smaller point, and so I can get it up under there a lot easier than the seam ripper. Sometimes the fact that the needle has a nice point on it can get you hung up in the fabric, but for this I've done ruler work, so my stitches don't tend to get very small. So it's nice and easy. Just go ahead and pull this back. And just running that needle in. I'm always making sure that I don't have it going through the back of the piece. And I do. Usually when I'm doing this, I'll stick my thumb up underneath the piece, but I don't want to move this piece with the camera sitting there. I can't see what it's showing. So there's my loop of thread, so that the thread is not pulled right out of the eye of the needle as I pull it through. You just saw my hand block probably the whole screen there. And just pop that end in. and trim my threads. So I've cleaned that up. And you see all those stitch holes there, and that's easily taken out when I'm done with a spritz of water and just a little rub, and those will disappear right away. I'm not going to do that now. I'll do it once I finish the piece, and I'm going to stop the video right here and get set up to do the stitching to stitch this section over again. Alright, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're getting ready to stitch this over again. I've already ripped out my threads. I had a nice little zigzag here. So ripped them out to here and to here. Now of course this is ruler work, so I've got to have a ruler to line this up with. So when I was quilting this, the anchor post, move that here. Can you see the anchor post? Oh, I hope you can. Yes, you can. That's the anchor post, was in the center of the block. And I'm not going to use the anchor post now because I'm just doing this one pass. But it lined up just like so. And I can use my markings on my template to line up with other lines of stitching so that I can get everything placed just right. And I'm just going to hold it in place as I quilt. And I'll just quilt right here. I don't need the anchor post in. This is the 9-inch Dahlia from Top Anchor Quilting Tools. You can find this at my shop. That's amysquiltingadventures.com. And I'm going to turn the video off here now so I can set up at the machine and you can watch me stitch it. Okay, so I'm at the machine now. I'm getting ready to stitch. And I need to start my thread again. And I need to do it so that it's practically invisible to see the stop and start. So I'm going to start here out on the flower petal. It's going to be easier to hide where I stop here in the center section. And so if I'm slightly off, I can easily stitch to where you can't see it. But here, it's just absolutely vital that I get it just right. So I'm going to bring down my needle right into that last stitch. And I'm using my hand wheel at the moment. Remember, you always leave your foot in the down position when you bring up your bottom thread on doing ruler work with that ruler foot, because it's got such a high lip to it. You damage your machine otherwise. So I've got it down, and I'm just going to start very slowly, and I'm taking one stitch back. And then I'm going to make one stitch forward. Alright, so that has helped to secure my thread ends in. Rotate this so I can see what I'm doing better. And I'm just lining up my template markings with my previous line of stitching. And I'm just going to start stitching here. Something's wrong with my machine. How do you like that? You know what it is? My bobbin's nearly out of thread, and that end that we start the bobbin with when we wind it has come undone and has tangled up with the rest of the bobbin thread. So I'm going to stop there, and we'll have to start all over again. So Amy here again. So I have removed my quilt project, and I've opened up my bobbin case. Not my bobbin case, my bobbin cover. And it's not tangled up anymore, but I'm taking this bobbin out so you can see what happened. I was stitching along. You start hearing something wasn't right. And if you're watching this, you've probably seen the previous video. You see that little thread tail there? That's what had been the end of my thread, or the beginning of it when I started winding my bobbin. And so as that thread from the top thread was making its stitch and going around the bobbin case and over the top of the bobbin, it was pulling this in and trying to form it into the stitch. Okay, I've got some new thread on a bobbin and I'm ready to go. So I've ripped out all those stitches that I was doing before, And I'm just going to drop the foot down, starting right there where the 2 lines of stitching cross. Notice my foot is down. If I drop my needle with my foot up, the needle clamp and the foot are going to hit. So always lower your foot before you drop that needle down. I'm going to just get it right in there with my hand wheel so I've got it perfectly aligned before I drop it down. I'm going to do this part without the ruler. Just 1 stitch back, 1 stitch forward. That will help secure that edge. And I'm just going to reposition this ruler. I didn't bother with the anchor post. I'm just placing the ruler where it needs to be. I've lined up my previous stitching with the marks on the template. This is the top anchor 9-inch dahlia template. And I'm just stitching along. There, now I've gotten into that circle there, and I'm just going to stop right there. Raise my foot. Now I could stitch a couple of times up and down in place to kind of tie this off, or back stitch a little bit, kind of like I did the first where I started there. But I like to bury my ends, so I just stopped. And let me take my quilting gloves off. It does make it a little bit easier to tie knots with them off. Again, I've got that light colored thread in the bobbin. I had a couple of spools already wound, so I just used that. And I've got plenty of thread tail this time, since I'm not ripping anything out. And just doing an overhand knot. This is a lot faster than when you have 2 little short stobby threads. I'm pulling it down there with my needle. And make sure that that light colored thread gets pulled to the back. Sticking it in that needle. Got that loop of loose thread there. That way I can get that needle through the fabric and have plenty of slack to pull it on through. Pop my needle in. And here I'm just using my threads, or my seam ripper to cut my threads where I put my scissors. Silly me. And here's where we started. Very long thread tails here. That's okay. Just a nice little overhand knot. And get that needle in. I want to make sure that needle is not going through the back of the fabric, through the backing. Just want it running through the batting. You're going to watch it if you're sticking your needle up underneath another line of stitching. Sometimes your needle will go through the backing. I'm just pulling that through. Put my needle up. Give a little tug on that knot. Cut the threads. And there you go. Let's see, where did I start? Right here. So right here's where I started. Stitched all the way up here. You can't even see that repair. Alright. So that's how I fix stitches. And once again, this is Amy from Amy's Free Motion Quilting Adventures. You can find my blog at freemotionquiltingadventures.com. You can also find my internet shop at amysquiltingadventures.com. And I sell the tools that I use in my videos and my projects on my blog. I also have a craftsy class called Quilting with Rulers on a Home Machine, where I talk about doing this ruler work. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.